Pain. What is that? It's something that we all live with. We all struggle with, and we all have to eventually, whatever. I'm just trying to do a video. Who cares? Cluster headaches. What are they? Glad you asked. Cluster headaches are actually a neurological type of disorder. It's more of a disease than it is like a typical headache. I don't really understand why they call it that, because I feel like that's a very mild way to explain it. Is an issue with your hypothalamus that misfires, and it creates this like painful feedback loop. And that's the thing. It's very unknown. So I'm just doing this as an educational thing. So yeah, we'll make the video. So if you know anybody that deals with this, you know, maybe you talk to them, maybe you kind of figure out where their headspace is and just be there for them. I mean, that's the biggest thing. The condition isn't just called cluster headaches. They're called sewer slide headaches, but
there was this level of almost hallucination or delusional quality that it felt like if I said anything to anyone, it would be more real, and maybe it'll just go away if I pretend it doesn't exist.
Now at first, like the first time I watched this, I thought they were talking about like the chupacabra or something, and that, you know, definitely two different things. But honestly, I think I would rather be chased by a chupacabra in the woods. So
it was in 1985. I was working in a bar in Daytona Beach. I had gone into the cooler to get some beer, and it hit me. I had no idea what was happening. I thought I had a brain tumor.
Got my first one.
I thought I was dying.
My wife and I sitting in the living room, enjoying an evening. Next thing you know, I'm on the floor.
I remember the first time I had actually had one of my cluster headaches. I had just moved back from Miami, and I thought I was like having some like epileptic like breakdown or something, because it just felt like my entire brain was getting fried.
Next thing you know, I'm on the floor in the fetal position. Then it went to slamming my head into the freezer door, trying to make it stop.
Something got in my eye, and it was pushing it out. And I was trying to push it back in. I had no idea what was going on.
I started complaining that I woke up in the middle of the night and my eye hurt. And I was convinced it was my eye, because at that time I was just shy of 7 years old.
So I was...
Dude, that is very true. And somebody had actually mentioned earlier about banging their head into stuff, and I can validate that. I don't understand why, but I've had migraines before, and these things feel like walks in the park. Dude, you get very irritable. You can't sit still. You have to move. And legit, the first I think it was like the first cycle I went through, or maybe the first 2 cycles I went through, and I actually ended up like banging my head into, it was like a chest of drawers or something like that. Because it was like this distractional type of therapy, almost, as weird as that is. Because it's unilateral. You feel it on one side of your head or your face, and you try to affect the other side, so it's in just as much pain, as weird as that is, because if you have one side that's hurting really bad, everything feels off. Yes.
I was about 10 and a half, 11 years old. I can't really remember too many details, but I do remember how much pain I was in.
I had a pain at 1 in the morning that I had never experienced before in my life, and it was one of these pains where like, there's something really, really wrong here. And
I can't even explain to you how, you know, what it felt like, other than something is happening. I'm probably going to die tonight.
Yeah, very true. Like legit. And I have watched this video. They try to explain it, but what's weird to me is like everybody will try to explain this in terminology that people can't relate to, and I found a few different ways that it's like, oh no, I can actually convey a way of this this feeling of what it feels like.
A cluster headache attack is something that unless you've had one, you can't really envision or think about what it feels like. The pain level is higher than anything that you've ever experienced. It's localized behind the eye. You feel like your eyeball is getting pushed out of its socket. And it is a really sharp, stabbing pain. One word that I kind of like to use sometimes is it's an exquisite pain, which really kind of describes how sharp it is to me. Okay, so he at least framed it with him. I would not call it an exquisite pain. Exquisite sounds good. This is not good. Another thing, you can tell that dude, like, you could tell back in the day, he used to go see some Grateful Dead,
and he's partied quite a bit. He says that, yeah, the intense stabbing pain, and a lot of people can't really relate to that. As far as the pain that somebody that has this goes through, it is the most intense pain that you will feel. There's nothing else that compares to it. For example, I've had broken bones. I've had surgeries. I've been catheterized, and I would take that like every day compared to this stuff. And that's the thing that really sucks. Like, for example, there's a KIP pain scale. Let me see if I can find that real quick. So this is a KIP pain scale. And it kind of shows the severity. So like if you have a weak cluster headache, and honestly 2s and 3s will ruin your your day, like they'll ruin your whole day. And if you can see like all the way out of 10, a severe extreme one, that is worse than amputation without anesthetic. And what the hell? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, this is very, it's an underrated topic. Not a lot of people understand this, but there's a reason why they're called the sewer slide headaches. And I don't even know why they're called headaches, because it doesn't feel anything like it. But yeah, at a level 10, it is a serious cluster headache. It's worse than amputation without anesthetic. Below that is a difficult delivery. So it's worse than childbirth. And this is part of the whole video. So my thing is, I've never seen something really unify like an online community, except for this. Dude, this community is so unified on everything. If like I could go through all of these comments, and they are insane, like how unified all these people are at validating each other for the pain that they actually go through. And yeah, like this, let's see, difficult delivery. And I remember somebody, I was watching a TikTok or something, and they were like, this is the worst pain I've ever experienced in my life. And this person, they had somebody comment, it was like, oh wait, you should try having a child. And dude, all of the women in this group were just like, hold up, you need to chill out. This shit sucks. Like, seriously, evaluate yourself. Dude, it was insane. I've never seen that amount of outpouring. And it wasn't like a snooty way. It was just like, listen, we can try to explain it, and we're trying to fight government regulation, because there's a lot of this stuff that's understudied, like people don't understand it, and they're all trying to kind of be unified for each other. And it's just like, until a lot more congressmen and stuff get this condition, then there's probably not going to be a lot more research into it. But we have some smart people out there. I just want to look at some of these. Renal colic, what is even that? I don't even know what it is, but apparently a level 10 outbeats that. Crushed limbs, a raging toothache, fracture, severe cramping, all that stuff. And I can attest to a lot of this. Like, I've had abscessed teeth before. I've actually had an impacted tooth where my wisdom tooth actually came in and completely shattered one of my molars. It's like not even a fraction of what a cluster headache is. And I seriously, like, they should honestly just, yeah, they should probably just rename it. But yeah, this is the one, you said Google it. Oh yeah, let's Google it. What is a renal colic? I feel like I'm not going to look for images. Okay, so it's kidney stones, legit. So it's worse than kidney stones, which I always have people kind of arguing on that, and it's just like, dude, it's rough. So we'll go back to the chat wants to know. Well, we know now. It's worse than kidney stones. Then again, if it's worse, that's my thing. If it's worse than having a limb amputated without anesthetic, then I think it's safe to say it's worse than a kidney stone. And the severe extreme ones, I've had 2 of those this month in and of itself, dude. It was awful, man. So yeah, we'll go back to it.
The pain for me is as if someone takes a hot bayonet and sticks it in my eye and into my head like a hot poker and turns it around. There is no escaping that pain. You are screaming, you are pacing, you are wanting to pound your head against the wall, and it is relentless. It does not stop for 1 heartbeat until it quits or lets down, and that can be 45 minutes or 3 hours and 45 minutes.
Okay, so this is what I was talking about, where people try to they try to put some type of like definition of whatever the pain is that people can't understand. You can't possibly understand what a searing hot bayonet or a fireplace poker in your eyeball feels like. I can't. I don't know. However, what I can equate it to is, you know how whenever you get brain freeze and you do this thing, you stop and you can't really focus on anything. You can't really function. So yeah, it's intensified brain freeze. So take your brain freeze dial and dial it up as high as it can possibly go. And it's on one side of your brain. So it's not both hemispheres firing off. It's just that one side. So it's like a very intense brain freeze. Next time you have brain freeze, try to do anything. And the thing is, brain freeze only lasts like 12 seconds. This stuff can last for a lot longer. And it is absolute garbage.
Feels like somebody is ripping your eye out and like taking just like a nice pick, and just really like stabbing it and over and over and over and over and over and over again.
You are on the floor, you are crying for help, and you can't believe that a human can feel this pain.
Dude, that's where I stand. Dude, I feel like nobody should ever have to feel that type of pain. I feel like if they could bottle this up and use it in torture methods, it would be insane. It would go so hard. But that's the thing. If you're having a level 10, I mean, honestly, a level 7, you're done. A level 3, anything above a little, like level 1 to 2, I can function, but I'm irritable, and I can barely kind of focus on what I'm doing. Anything above a 3, you are stuck. You have to stop what you're doing. You have to isolate yourself 9 times out of 10. And you can't do anything until that attack completely subsides. You are just done. You're cooked. Yeah, 4 hours, I couldn't imagine. And the thing is that people live with this chronically. I'm episodic, so it only happens between the changing of seasons. A lot of times, spring to summer. I'm currently in one, and it's from summer to fall. And that sucks. I've been going through it. I'm trying to think, at least 6 to 7 weeks every single day, multiple times a day. People that deal with this stuff chronically, my heart breaks for them because they're dealing with this stuff every single day. I don't know how long their remissions, if they even have remission. I think it was less than 3 months to be chronic. So they might deal with this, the majority of the year. It's terrible. And the same thing that she's saying right here. I don't know how a human being can feel that type of pain.
It feels like someone is stabbing you with a knife in your eye over and over again.
I have tried knocking myself out by pounding my head on ceramic tile
and
floors. And I think that the pain is actually so high that it pushes your body past the level that normally puts a body into shock. I mean, if you're in an accident and you suffer some serious injury, your body usually goes into shock so you don't even feel that pain. I think that this pain is so high that it surpasses that level where your body can't even shut down and put you into shock to avoid it.
You're waking up from a dead sleep, hearing him crying in the shower and banging on the walls, and you hear tiles breaking, and this is like repeatedly all the time.
Bro, absolutely. I'm telling you, I've done it too. And that's the thing, like I felt ridiculous after, because what happens is like you go through this attack and it's absolutely incredibly painful, and then it stops and it goes away. Like there's not a whole lot of lingering. Like you feel like there's a little bit of pressure in your head, like it's swollen. But dude, yeah, it'll go away, and it's like it never happened. And it's just like, wow, I felt like I was just acting ridiculous. But you have like, you can't help it. I remember I'd called my mom one time. I just wanted somebody to be there for me. And I was screaming because I was at a level 10, and it was insane. And I was screaming, and I got a, cut it out. What are you doing? Or like my boss today saying, you're gonna have to learn to cope with it. Because I had to stop. I couldn't even work. The thing is like if I walked around, it looked like I was on heroin. Like you can't focus. You can't do anything. Because the only thing you can focus on is pain. You can't focus on your peripherals. You can't focus on anything. You have to close your eyes and you just have to, like your whole body, like all of your body's resources and everything is directed to this intense pain that you're currently going through. But yeah, this is another reason why I'm making this is the whole, hey, you're gonna have to cope with it. It's just like, oh, I really wish I would have thought about that. Why didn't you tell me that like 5 years ago? Like, dang, man, you would have saved me a lot of headache there, you know?
Give him a heart attack because of all the pain, and I'd hear him crying and moaning and pacing back and forth.
I would just say that Dad's having headaches and we just have to try to be quiet, even though he said it doesn't matter. Noise didn't bother him. It's just like he was in his own world and nothing was around except for him and the pain.
In a very brief period, usually preceded by a sense of not necessarily pain, but a certain discomfort behind the eye, as if there's some pressure behind it and some sensation here, but not exactly painful. This is what we call shadows, and within a few minutes that ramps up intensely and very quickly to an explosive pain behind the eye, as if someone behind is trying to push the eyeball out of its socket. It's the best way I can describe it. For me, they last about an hour and 15 minutes if I'm not able to abort the attack. And then within a matter of 5 minutes or less, it's gone from me and at least that attack is over.
That was that's fair. But no, that the whole shadows thing, I've experienced that as well. And like today, for example, I had felt it, and then it had increased and it ramped up to severe. I'd say it was about a 7 or an 8 today, and it ramped up within, as soon as I felt shadows coming on, within like 30 seconds to a minute. And also I just want you guys to keep this in mind. They say it could last 30 minutes to 3 hours. The thing is whenever you're dealing with pain, time kind of slows down, like your perception of time. And that is the longest hour or 30 minutes of your life. Mine lasts 30 to 45 minutes. And it is the longest passage of time that exists. The 30 minutes sounds like not that big of a deal, but it is a very big deal. It feels like you're just, yeah. And I don't think anybody's really explained that. How the passage of time is a lot slower. But think about last time you were in pain. For example, I've broken, so you have your femur and you have the ball that sits on top of your femur. I've actually broken that off before. I actually have a screw through it. And whenever stuff like that happens, it's only a matter of seconds, but it feels like it's a matter of minutes or hours. So these instances they move just as slow, and it's awful. Devil's Tic Tacs. I'm from the South. We know something about devils. We know something about Tic Tacs. We know something about all that.
Well, the first 10 years, I would go to the emergency room. I saw several neurologists and did not have much success at all.
Now, I had 2 gamma knife surgeries, which is a pinpoint radiation to the trigeminal nerve to try and stop the pain from a cluster headache. They did not work, by the way.
I had teeth pulled.
2 operations where they tried to radio frequency lesion of the trigeminal nerve.
They essentially put these long...
Okay, side note, all of these guys, it looks like their name would be Rusty. If I ever see them out in the wild, I'm just going to call them all Rusty. Be like, Rusty, props to you, man. I hope that you have a pain-free summer and fall.
Needles up your nostrils and eject Novocaine into a nerve block back into your head. It was very painful, but I was in the middle of a major episode, and it cured it for one day.
Many drugs.
We tried lithium.
Lithium,
Depakote, antidepressants.
I was on a couple of different anxiety medications.
Topamax,
Verapamil, years of Verapamil.
I was on a very high dosage of prednisone for many years.
Prednisone.
I'll call it the devil's Tic Tacs, prednisone.
it would stop my attacks, but it ruined my body.
I was on prednisone for maybe 2 to 3 years.
Prednisone didn't do nothing. Nothing. Verapamil, nothing. Absolutely nothing. A level 3 sprained ankle from falling down the stairs. That is my wife. Went down the stairs. But yeah, I love you. I love you still. Anyway. Yes, the whole devil's Tic Tacs, brother.
Non-stop. I felt really weak and I just didn't feel like myself.
I went from a size 2 to a size 12.
Some of the meds that I was taking, the triptans, they work great, but as a fireman, you got to be ready to go, and the side effects after an attack and after using the Imitrex, I was pretty shot. I get tired.
Epilepsy medications, we tried everything.
All with very little success.
During the attack, a large percentage of people with cluster headaches does come into their head as a way to end the pain.
By the way, I would say look this channel up or look this video up. However, because of the title, because they mentioned sewer slide, as you could imagine, I tried to search it earlier and I couldn't find it. YouTube doesn't like that, even though this is a very real, actual thing. Like in one of their websites, or if you go to any cluster headache website, there are hotlines listed everywhere. It's just the reality of it. But yeah, this is a hard topic, by the way. If you're watching and you have triggers or issues with self-harm, then I would advise clicking on a different stream. However, educational. Get educated. It's that simple. Easy.
They start thinking about not only surviving that one, but knowing that even if they survive that attack, 3 hours later, they're going to be back at it again.
In 2013, when I actually got pain-free time, all my feelings, all my emotions that were buried for many, many years, they all boiled up. So I ended up putting a gun to my head and pulled the trigger.
They even had one neurologist say to me, well, I came in and I'm not getting better. They tried this and tried that, and it's not being effective. And I went in and he kind of said, well, the only cure is a 357.
Bro, I cannot believe that anybody any medical professional would actually tell this guy this. That is nuts. That is crazy. Or I find it hard to believe. Then again, this dude is older. What sucks about it is that he's probably been dealing with this stuff for the past 30, 40 years. So of course, thinking about it back in those days, they were probably a little bit more worried about being politically correct. I don't even think that you could say politically correct in this. It's sensitive. They were being a little bit more. They didn't have sensitivities back then. They just didn't care. So I guess I could believe it, especially that was 40 years ago.
And I said, 357. And he says, well, you can't cure them. I says, are you saying I should blow my brains out?
I was pulling the hammer back, not realizing I was pulling the trigger, and it jammed on me.
One night I decided I couldn't take it anymore. The pain was just too much because I'd go to emergency and they told me I was seeking drugs.
And see, that is heartbreaking because this lady seems like a very kindred spirit. Like, I'd hang out and talk with her. Like, she seems very cool. And to think that these humans are having to go through this level of pain, oh, that's heartbreaking. That sucks.
So I loaded the gun and I got on the computer to tell everybody bye. And Eric Diamond, he was on the computer that night and he told me, he says, no, you've done it this long, you can continue. It's not easy.
Suicidal ideation that in my view is less about wanting to kill.
I'm not crying, you're crying. Oh, that's rough. Poor lady. It's just something, I'm not getting emotional. That's you disgusting. Get out of here.
Myself and more about I'll do whatever it takes to stop the pain, even if that's what it takes. I know for me, my experience was I would just be collateral damage. I'd be willing to kill it, even if it meant I die with it.
Every man has a breaking point. You don't give up right away, but sooner or later, nobody's going to keep going, and that's the way I look at anyone, especially someone that suffers as much as they do with cluster headaches. If they would decide to take their own life, I would definitely not call it a cowardly deed.
Man, and this is another thing, is like, that's another reason why I'm making this, is because, like, how long have some of these guys been dealing with this, and to have people out there that don't understand it and they're just like, yeah, just cope with it. Like, you're just gonna have to learn to cope with it, dude. Like, dude, it's not that bad, man. Just learn to cope with it. Have you tried taking Tylenol? Have you tried taking Tylenol, my dude? Just take Tylenol. Like, just do that. Like, come on, man. It's like that easy. Drink water. I've actually heard that one time. I need to drink water. It's like, thanks. I appreciate that a lot. Or the, dude, yeah, I'm glad that she's still around as well. They did do her wrong. That is absolute garbage. And she's part of this group now. It's Cluster Busters. I would highly recommend it. And whenever I post this YouTube video, I will actually link their site as well. Look them up, donate, do all that stuff. I don't want a dime from this video. I feel like they should do it because they're doing a lot more research than I am. I'm doing research selfishly for myself because I don't like pain. But all of these people, they're doing a lot for their community, and they're doing a lot for people that also suffer with this. But yeah, thinking about somebody that's dealt with this for 40 years, just cope with it, dude. Just find a way to cope. Just cope, or just get over it, man. Like, cut that out. Cut all that screaming out. It's just a hot bayonet in your face. Just cut that out. Cut the screaming out. You're being selfish. You're being childish. You're waking the neighbors. Cut it out. Heck yeah, brother. Spaghetti and mushrooms.
I was online talking on this message board. A friend of mine in Scotland came on the board, and he really just kind of asked the question if anybody had ever heard anything about psychedelics being able to treat cluster headaches. And some of the people on the message board wanted to kick him off the message board because talking about Schedule I drugs, and no, we don't supply drugs, go away. And you know, one of the things people with cluster headaches do is if you have one at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesday, you're going to have one at 2 o'clock in the afternoon every day until your cycle ends. So when one doesn't happen, you try to figure out what it was that you did differently. And if you had spaghetti the night before, you're going to eat spaghetti for the next 6 weeks, you know, hoping that it happens again.
That is very true. You have this like superficial, like superstition almost like baseball players, to where baseball players, if they're on a streak, they won't wash their hands the entire time. Like they'll go through a whole season without washing a hand. This is extremely true. I know that my wife and I, like, we're trying to figure out those things. Like, if I did have a break in it one night, it's like, what, did you drink green tea the night before? Did you drink jasmine tea? Did you have processed cheese? Like, you try to find these correlations on what actually starts to break a cycle, and honestly, it's always hit and miss. It doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot, and you feel like you got it figured out, and then you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning, losing sleep, and not only losing sleep, but waking up the entire house because you can't help but to scream like a ravenous bird at 4 o'clock in the morning.
So this guy in Scotland came to the board, and his cycle didn't start that fall that he expected, and he tried to figure out what it was he had done differently, and the only thing he could think of was that he had used LSD recreationally a couple of times during that summer, and then did a little bit of research and found out that when LSD was discovered, it was actually being looked at as a treatment for headaches. At that point, I was actually... Look,
I'm just going to level with you guys for a bit. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to have family. I'm going to have friends that watch this, I'm sure. And I just want to be very real with you. I am currently doing psilocybin. I am currently doing mushrooms. I've actually listened to a few Yale studies. There's been some studies through Harvard, how these psychedelics, I'm not going to touch LSD or LSA unless this stuff just doesn't work. The thing is like, when you've been around it, if you've seen somebody have an attack like that, then you are willing to try alternative medicines, regardless of whatever stipulations you think that there are. So yes, I might have some family or friends that see that and just trust me, like, I'd rather not, if I didn't have to, but I will do anything that I can, just so there can be a little bit more sanity in this house. You could ask my wife. I haven't slept a full night of sleep. Thanks for the disclaimer. I appreciate that. You don't have to defend me. I can defend myself on this. Everybody can eat crow. I don't care, but especially with the severity of this, that's the issue. Oh yeah, you could ask my wife. Sorry, I had to think about where my train of thought was there. You could ask her. I haven't slept a full night of sleep until I've actually microdosed. I haven't slept a full night of sleep in probably a month, because my cycle was right before midnight and 4 o'clock in the morning. Or yeah, and the thing that sucks, actually no, it was 4:40, 4:50, roughly. And what sucks is by the time the cluster headache would actually end, my alarm clock was scheduled to go off. So I'm just like up another extra hour, 2 hours early, just angry, even though I only had probably barely 3 hours of sleep. And it seemed like every time I'd go into deep REM sleep, as soon as I'd start like vividly dreaming, you're just pulled right out of it. You can't sleep through it. And if you sleep through it, it gets worse. Or if you try to, it gets worse. So yeah, I digress. Let's continue.
Actually scheduled to choose between one of 3 surgeries that I was approved for: the gamma knife, which is shooting radiation into the brain; microvascular decompression, which is drilling a hole in the back of your skull and wrapping the nerves with Teflon; and radio frequency ablation of the trigeminal nerve in my face. So I was trying to decide which one I was going to subject myself to, and a friend of mine on the internet sent me some mushrooms, and I found them sitting on my front porch and decided to give them a try before I decided which one of these surgeries I was going to do. We made tea with the mushrooms and I drank it, and it was completely different than anything I'd ever tried before. Up to that point, I'd tried 70 different medications. And if any of them had any effect at all, I could say,
Don't do it. Don't try the mushroom. You want Imitrex, you want Flexeril, you want hydroxyzine, you want isopitin. What is that? You want Klonopin. Don't do it. This stuff's bad for you. Don't do it. This dude is a walking pharmacological experiment. Like, dude, you want fentanyl? Dude, this dude was doing fentanyl. It didn't touch it. Are y'all kidding me? You see, this is okay, yeah, I'm getting very passionate about this right now. If you know somebody that's suffering with this and they want to try alternative medicine, let them try alternative medicine. What is all this? Hydrocodone, Imitrex, Klonopin, lithium, histamine, lidocaine. Bro, come on. And you think that's okay? My mom's probably gonna be watching this. And yes, forgive me, Mom, but you think this is fine. It's not okay. And the thing is, the crazy thing is about all of this, none of this, not a single one of these, they're not for cluster headaches. They're trying to treat symptoms. None of these are rated or tested for it. It's just they are taking ingredients and just throwing it at a wall and hoping that they make a pancake. But they have shit in one hand and shit in the other, and it doesn't add up. This dude, seriously, man, this dude is like, he's gonna turn into the Hulk. Like, just blast him with gamma rays at this point. I don't really know, man.
Feel the pain in the back of the head, feeling like a balloon.
Bro,
my head cleared like
it's still going.
20 years before that, before my cycle had ever started. So I knew what a profound difference this was, and that's really what started me on the mushroom treatments.
And take this in mind. I'd actually started trying microdosing. I think it was Wednesday night going into Thursday, or it might have been Thursday night. My days are mixed up. Very, very sleepless nights. I'd actually started microdosing, and the first day that I microdosed, that was the very first time I had gotten a full night's of sleep, like full night of sleep. And that whole next day and the whole next day after that, like even that balloon feeling, like where I felt like my head was just full of pressure and stuff, had like vanished. That's very accurate, and man, it's insane how much of a difference it has made. Now, has it completely got rid of everything? Nah. However, I'm actually sleeping, which is very helpful. And it no longer feels like I'm about to have a stroke or a heart attack, because that's part of it. Like, you're constantly on edge. You feel like you're having shadows. So if you feel like you're having shadows a lot, usually what'll happen is like you automatically feel like you're just tense all the time, because you're just trying to fight off something that you can't control. So yeah, very, very accurate, very true. And I'm hoping that this will continue to be the trajectory, of course.
There is a grower's guide. It's the Magic Mushroom Grower's Guide. I mean, honestly, it's very simple. It takes you an hour in the kitchen. So if you can bake a cake, you can grow mushrooms.
That is a quote of the century, my friends. If you can bake a cake, hey brother, listen here. I listened to Grateful Dead whenever I was growing up. I'll tell you one thing, brother. If you can bake a cake, you can make mushrooms. I like this guy. I want to meet this dude. Whatever, somebody reach out to this guy for me. He seems cool.
After the first cluster headache conference, I said, you know what, I need to do this for myself. I was a little skeptical, but a little help with my family. I received some alternative medicine, and they said, if this is gonna help you, then let's try it. So I one day just closed my door, watched a funny movie, tried out the alternative medicine, and I couldn't believe even the next day that I was pain-free.
She put on Hey Arnold, and she watched the episode of Hey Arnold where there was a heat wave, and the heat wave caused the kids to actually riot and flip over an ice cream truck, talking about no ice cream, no peace. Hashtag on Twitter. Very true story. Very good time. I could recommend that from personal experience, honestly. You just have a few bars and watch a few bars. You know what I'm saying?
My son had a friend whose father wore a lot of Deadhead shirts, so I figured, well, I guess there's maybe a source. My wife talked to him, and
you don't say that the people that have the Grateful Dead merch could possibly be a source of finding alternative medicine. Brother's a genius. I love you, dude. That is work. He did some work on that one.
And he told my wife, yeah, come back in the afternoon, I'll talk to you later. He jumped on the internet and looked everything up. And he was basically in tears for me. And that evening, he gave me a hit of LSD. And I was pain-free for 90 days. 90 days. And then I was back to the emergency rooms. The emergency room said, we haven't seen you for a while. And I said, well, yeah, I took a hill of LSD. And they're like, what? Doesn't make any sense.
Like, how dare you? Do you know how dangerous that stuff is? It melts holes in your brain. You shouldn't do that. Now, the psychedelics of that nature scare the piss out of me. I don't think I could have the gall to do that. But microdosing shrooms, I feel like that would be a little bit easier. But man, that is funny. He just straight up told him, yeah, man, I did some LSD. Like, the stuff y'all put me on sucks.
Makes sense.
When I was first learning about psychedelics and had used them and found out how well they worked with few side effects. All of the research dollars were really going into different forms of medical devices and surgeries. One of the studies that was going on was a thing called deep brain stimulation, which was being used to treat Parkinson's at that point. They were just starting to look at that. And there was a study going on in Germany that included 6 people with cluster headaches. And one of those 6 people actually died from the surgery. And the conclusion after that surgery was that they did see some improvement in some of the people that didn't die, and they thought that more research into deep brain stimulation was warranted.
Oh, dude. So they're just like, hey, that's why he didn't die. Hey, that's a positive, mate. That one not dead guy, there's a small, tiny improvement. Let's do this. Let's do this more. Let's do it. The not dead guy, the not dead. That's very good for research. That's very good for dollars. That's the not dead guy is going to take us to the moon.
And they were going to continue that surgery and that research. And at that point, I had already known that mushrooms had been used to treat headaches for thousands of years. There was actually written evidence back in the Rig Veda, which is I think 3,000 years old, where people were using mushrooms to treat headache conditions.
Okay, stop for a second. I just realized this is not informal. This is a hippie psyop. Chat, this is a psyop to make sure that we get all of you guys back onto the hippie antics of the 70s. I'm just a sleeper agent. That's all I am. I'm just here for your attention. And here to advocate for you guys to do to go on crazy acid trips, and listen to more sitar in your music. Just put sitar everywhere. Start putting it in your TikToks. Start brushing your teeth to it. This is all a hippie psyop. That's it.
And I knew a lot of people that were using them to treat their cluster attacks and ending them. And I thought it was terrible that we weren't allowed to research mushrooms, but they were allowed to research putting wires deep into the brains of people that I cared about. So
he's on to something.
Really a motivating factor for me for trying to educate people as to the efficacy and the safety of psychedelics, and that research needed to be done, and whether or not it was as good as it seemed to all of us that were using them successfully.
So I finally convinced everybody that it's time to go public and let the public know how we're being mistreated.
Okay, so the mistreatment, I remember the first time I watched this, I'm like, the first time I had seen this was a few years ago. And I'm like, mistreated? How are you mistreated? I didn't really understand. I didn't really correlate it. But now I kind of get it. Dude, I don't know how many neurologist appointments. I don't know how many CAT scans. I don't know how many CT scans, MRIs, whatever have you, that I've been through. And for them to diagnose this shit, it felt like it was an act of Congress. Dude, I had an MRI, and that's the smaller tube, to where they had to do an MRI on my head. So anybody that's had an MRI already knows how, if you're claustrophobic, how much more claustrophobic you are. I had to sit in an MRI machine with a cage over my head so I couldn't move it at all because they need to get a clear image. And I was in that damn thing for like 40 minutes. And the only thing that got me through it, because that was intense. I didn't think I was claustrophobic until that very moment. And the only thing that got me through it is that they were playing glass animals through these pneumatic type of like earbuds almost. They're playing glass animals, and I was just like, yeah, I can hang out in here for a little bit because it just fit the environment. I'm in a dark tube, and glass animals is a vibe. But yes, to go back to this mistreatment, half of it is I understand why there's mistreatment, and the other half of it is just like heartbreak, because it's like I understand why it makes sense that this stuff isn't heavily researched or funded or the medication isn't, readily available. For example, sumatriptan. I had a nasal injection or a nasal applicator of sumatriptan. It looks like Narcan. It looks just like Narcan. It's even in the same little shape. It's a single dose. And a box of 5 or 6. My wife went to go get some, and the price tag on that was over $200. And that's 6 doses. And have this in mind. 6 doses wouldn't even last you a day. Not even a day. $200. They're just like, fork it over. Fortunately, they gave us a discount, and it took it down to $120 for 6 doses. Completely ridiculous. And so I understand where they feel like they're being mistreated, but I also understand from a economical standpoint. I think in the U.S. population, and this is older data, I haven't looked it up recently. It was like 4,000 people in the U.S. are. You said $240. Yeah, that's insane. But I think it's less than 4,000 people, or around 4,000 people in the U.S. are actively diagnosed with cluster headaches, which is. Why would a pharmaceutical company pump that much equity into something that only 4,000 people have? Why would they make it cheaper? There's no reason to for them. There's no economic reason. Now, if more people in Congress were to get it, or more people that are actually higher up in those pharmaceutical companies, actually, of course, there would be change that happens. That's how it always happens. But unfortunately, it's the people that get it are the very common denominators, which would be the working class citizens of the United States of America, and of course, I'm sure of all around the world. So yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot of action taken, and it's pretty egregious. And I still stand by the whole my whole overarching statement of no human being should ever go through this. No human being should ever have to feel this.
If the stats from Larry Shore's study don't do it, it's time to handcuff myself to the door. And that will happen in February if we don't get results. So I'll be taking bail money.
I like this dude.
Once I got involved with Cluster Busters and met Bob, my life changed dramatically. I know he's not a doctor. I know he's not a politician. I know he's not a therapist. I know he's not a scientist. But in every one of those categories, he pushed those boundaries in every way for all of us.
But he knows how to make a good baked potato, and he knows some really good music. I tell you what, brother, that's American right there.
Bob Wald is the patron saint of cluster headache sufferers. In some ways, for personal reasons, on his own mission, he was someone who tried virtually everything there was, including some horrible, horrible treatments, and nothing worked until he came across psilocybin, which worked for him, and that was the first thing to work for him, and he's made it his life mission to help other cluster headache patients. So I'm not sure when he started this that he had any way of imagining what this would become, but as I understand it, it's the world's largest advocacy group for cluster headache patients.
I've been called a hero. Anybody that was down there working on the pile, firemen, police officers, volunteers, everybody down there.
Wait, was this a photo from 9/11? Like, I've listened to this before, but I haven't seen this photo. So I guess so. Dang, dude.
Never comfortable with that at all. I was doing my job. Bob, on the other hand, Bob is my hero. He wasn't doing his job. He took the bull by the horns, or the beast by the horns, and he ran with this thing, and he was the only source of information out there for us, So he's my hero, Bob, And my first conference last year, I finally got to meet him, and I couldn't catch my breath. I was starstruck, actually, when I first met him. And now that I've got to know him a little bit better, it's just even better, and I'm just even more amazed at what he does for us. This guy said,
And people will call this pseudoscience since there isn't enough official studies to back it, but I believe the victims, and it's not the victims' fault that they aren't being advocated for by the researchers. Well, good news to that. With the cluster busters and stuff, they've teamed up, and this is really good. They've actually teamed up with, Ivy League professors and whatnot. There's some Yale studies being done, and quite a few others, to where this is they're making it more of a mainstream thing. So there is good out of this. It's not all doom and gloom. So yeah, they've actually started putting money where their mouth is, and really, really kind of like hammering this down, which is amazing. So it's a good thing. That's good news. It's not all sad. So I'm not sure exactly what the status of that is. I've listened to a few of their conferences where it was like 4 to 6 hours of them kind of going over like issues with the hypothalamus gland, issues with the hypothalamus misfiring and creating this painful feedback loop through the trigeminal nerve, like issues with circadian rhythm and that being offset. How do you reset your circadian rhythm and stuff? So yeah, really good news. Absolutely. Oh, dude, this dude's crying.
This guy saved my life. I don't know where I would have been if I didn't find him in this group.
Poor dude. I hate that.
It's like finally meeting someone from your own tribe. These are people who understand and know, and people you can talk to about this and don't respond in the ways that other people do. So it's been described as a family reunion or a gathering of the tribe or something like that. And I think there's a tremendously therapeutic quality or value to being with other people who understand what something's like for you that happens to be very isolating.
Anybody that's out there that has cluster headaches, and
I feel that, man. And especially like, with my wife, she has been, and to anybody that's, I am positing it right here because they're talking about being, this is probably where I'll end it because they're all talking about being part of a community and a group. Then that's fantastic. That's awesome. And I need to remember that I'm still making this for YouTube for the other ones that feel like they don't have a support group or anything. I definitely highly advise checking them out. Watch the rest of the video if you want to learn a little bit more about their groups. I don't want to just completely rip their entire, even though this is like 70% of it, I don't want to completely rip the entire video here. But this is still a YouTube video. So if you happen to suffer with this stuff, or if you have a loved one that's currently dealing with this stuff, having an honest conversation on what that person not even expects, but how can you help them? Because it feels very hopeless. It feels like you can't do nothing because you can't. They're just going through it. They're going to continue going through it for a good 30 minutes or so, or an hour, 3 hours, however long it is. And my wife, she's been very amazing. Like what she does, especially if I'm going through a very severe episode, she just lays her head on my shoulder and she just rubs my back. She doesn't say anything and she just sits there with me in silence. And that's the most comforting thing that anybody can do, because it's just understanding, it's seeing what you're going through, and it's just being there just to be there for you. And there's something amazing about that. So yeah, so if you're going through this, or if your loved one's going through this, have those conversations, see what you can do. Getting frustrated sucks because you want to do something, but telling somebody to cope with it clearly means that you don't understand. And that's okay. Like, it's fine. You can't comprehend. And anytime that you start to doubt it or whatnot, just think about the worst painful experience you've ever had and amplify it. And I think that's what's going to help lead us towards compassion. So yeah, if you're currently suffering with this, my heart be with you. I wanted to make this because I want to kind of get it recirculating as well. And I feel like there needs to be more content creators like myself that they don't have to talk about this necessarily. This is my cross that I have to carry. You know, this is something that I have to, this is a burden that I have to carry. I feel like there are a lot of these little niche things that we might go through in life. And I think with me, this and like some issues with psychosis kind of go hand in hand. And I feel like a lot of more people need to be able to talk about these things openly and honestly, just so we can kind of see where we can go from here. And what was it? Cluster Busters. Yes, I would definitely, this is actually from them. So look them up, support them, donate to them. You don't have to do anything with my video here other than if you have a loved one, share it with them as well. Hey guys, thank you again for tuning in. I really appreciate you sticking around to the end. If you could share this with somebody if they suffer from cluster headaches or what they believe may be cluster headaches, this could of course shed a little bit of light and also kind of help point them in the right direction, especially if they're having to deal with this unfortunate, neurological condition. I thank you guys again for tuning in. If you could like this video or just subscribe for more content down the road. This isn't going to be the norm all the time. However, I would like to set some time aside from being goofy and try to do something a little bit more serious from time to time. And if you could also follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Therealmanzar. I'll link that below as well. Because I'd like to have more of the audience involved whenever I do record these types of videos, just so I keep from just being like me and a camera. I like to have a little bit more life with it, and sometimes seeing some of the input is really cool as well. So yeah, tune in there, and until next time, thank you, love you, adios, see ya.